A normal night, 3 alien workers, and an unexpected love story at bar. The Neon Refuge. The cargo manifests blurred together after the 8th hour. Myra Chen rubbed her eyes, the glow of 3 holographic screens painting her face in shades of blue and amber. Outside her cramped office, the Neo Jakarta spaceport hummed with a perpetual song of arriving and departing vessels, a rhythm that had become the soundtrack to her existence. She needed air. Real air, not the recycled atmosphere of the administrative tower. The elevator descended past the official levels, past the customs checkpoints, down to where the city's old bones still showed through its chrome skin. Myra had heard rumors of a place called the Gravity Well, a speakeasy tucked beneath the cargo district where port workers went to forget the weight of the stars pressing down on them. She found it behind a false wall in Warehouse 7, marked only by a faint blue neon symbol that flickered like a dying star. The door opened to reveal a cavern of warm darkness, all exposed brick and salvaged ship lighting. Perhaps 20 patrons occupied the scattered tables and the long bar, their conversations creating a gentle murmur beneath the slow jazz filtering from hidden speakers. 3 figures at the bar caught her attention immediately. They sat with the stillness of people accustomed to waiting, a quality Myra recognized from years of watching travelers between worlds. The leftmost had skin that seemed to hold its own luminescence, subtle silver undertones catching the amber bar lights. The middle figure practically vibrated with contained energy, copper highlights playing across their features as they gestured animatedly. The third sat furthest from the others, violet shadows pooling in the hollows of their face, watching the room with eyes that held entire galaxies of quiet thought. "First time?" the bartender asked, a weathered woman with kind eyes. "First drinks on the house for port workers." Myra settled onto a stool 2 seats from the violet-eyed stranger. "That obvious? You've got that look. Like you just discovered the world has basement levels." The bartender slid over something amber in a heavy glass. "Careful with that one. It's made from actual earth honey and off-world spices. Hits different." The drink burned sweetly, warmth spreading through Myra's chest. She became aware of the violet-eyed figure watching her with amused curiosity. "Your first time tasting real honey?" the stranger asked, their voice carrying an accent Myra couldn't place, vowels shaped differently, consonants that seemed to hum. "Is it that obvious? You made the same face I did." A slight smile. "I'm Essa. These are my colleagues, Thane and RYX." The silver-toned one, Thane, nodded solemnly. OX grinned and raised their glass. "To new faces in old places. Myra. I work manifests up in the tower." She studied them more carefully now. Dock workers, they'd said, but their clothes seemed too clean, too carefully worn. And there was something about the way they held themselves, a grace that spoke of different gravity. "You're waiting for something. A ship." In a manner of speaking, Essa replied, and something in those strange eyes suggested layers of meaning Myra couldn't yet comprehend. "We're waiting for clearance. Could be days. Could be weeks. Time moves differently when you're between destinations." Thane spoke then, his voice deep and measured. "We're repairing something beneath the city. Old infrastructure. The kind nobody remembers exists until it breaks. Temporal contracts," RYX added cheerfully. "We work, we wait, we see what unfolds." The conversation continued, flowing like water around stones. Myra found herself drawn in, fascinated by the way they spoke, the careful consideration before each answer, the way they seemed to taste words before releasing them. Essa in particular held her attention, something about the thoughtful pauses, the way shadows and light played across features that were almost but not quite familiar. When Essa reached for a drink, their hands brushed Myra's on the bar, just for a moment, just a whisper of contact. But the touch carried warmth that lingered, and Myra found herself wondering what it would be like to know these strange, beautiful strangers better. The night deepened around them, and for the first time in months, Myra forgot about cargo manifests and departure schedules. She forgot about the crushing routine of her days. There was only this moment, this bar, these mysterious workers with their ancient laughter and eyes full of stars. And Essa, watching her with quiet intensity, as if memorizing the exact shade of brown in human eyes by neon light. The weight of hidden truths. Myra returned to the Gravity Well the next night, telling herself it was just for the atmosphere, the escape from routine. But her eyes searched the dim space immediately, and relief flooded through her when she spotted the three figures at their same positions along the bar. Essa looked up as if sensing her arrival, and that slight smile appeared again, barely there, but warming something in Myra's chest that had been cold for too long. "You came back," Essa said simply, gesturing to the stool beside her. Not the one 2 seats away, but directly adjacent. An invitation. Slow night at the port. Myra slid into the seat, acutely aware of how close they were now, how she could smell something like ozone and distant rain on Essa's clothes. "Besides, you never finished your story about temporal contracts." HFY laughed from down the bar. "Careful, Myra from Manifests. We're terrible storytellers. We get lost in the details." But Thane's expression had grown serious. He exchanged a long look with Essa, some wordless conversation passing between them. Finally, Essa nodded. "Walk with me." Essa asked quietly. "There's a viewing platform above the old cargo bay. Better for certain conversations." They climbed a maintenance ladder, emerging onto a metal catwalk suspended beneath the warehouse's vaulted ceiling. Through grimy windows, Neo Jakarta spread out below them, a sea of light and shadow, neon arteries carrying the city's lifeblood. "We're not dock workers," Essa began, leaning against the railing. "Not in the way you understand it. We're Valorians. From a system your people call Kepler 442. We came here 3 months ago on a salvage contract." Myra's breath caught. She'd heard of Valorians, one of the few species granted limited Earth access for specialized technical work. But they were rare, expensive, and usually kept to secured zones. "You're off-world workers. Real ones. Very real." Essa's smile held sadness now. "There's an old transit portal buried beneath this district. Built before humans reached the stars, by a civilization that's dust now. It's been dormant for centuries, but it started failing, creating spatial distortions that threatened your city's foundation. We were hired to repair it." "Why hide in a speakeasy?" "Because the work is slow, and we're trapped here until it's complete. Because humans fear what they don't fully understand, and it's easier to be ordinary dock workers than off-world specialists under constant surveillance." Essa turned, and in the reflected city lights, her skin showed its true colors, violet depths that shifted with her breathing, patterns that flowed like water. "Because sometimes, even we need to pretend we belong somewhere." Myra reached out instinctively, her fingers hovering near Essa's arm. "May I?" At Essa's nod, Myra touched the exposed skin of her forearm. It was warm, smoother than human skin, with a subtle texture like the finest silk. Beneath her fingertips, she felt a faint vibration, Essa's pulse, but faster than human, a hummingbird rhythm of alien life. "Your world," Myra whispered. "What's it like?" Essa's eyes grew distant. "Endless twilight. Our star is smaller, cooler than yours. We have skies that burn in shades of purple and deep blue, and cities built from living crystal that grows over generations. Work is sacred to us, not a burden, but a meditation. We build and repair and create, and in the doing, we find meaning." "It sounds beautiful." "It is. And it's very far away." Essa's hand covered Myra's, still resting on her arm. The touch sent electricity through Myra's nervous system. "My people don't form connections easily. We're taught that bonds create complications, that emotional attachment disrupts the clarity needed for our work. But I keep coming back to this bar, hoping to see a manifest clerk with tired eyes and a beautiful curiosity." Essa's thumb traced patterns on Myra's wrist, and Myra felt her pulse jump beneath that gentle exploration. "I keep thinking about how your face looked when you tasted honey for the first time. How your laugh sounds when HFY tells terrible jokes. How close I want to be to you, even though I know I'm leaving." They stood in the industrial shadows, hands intertwined, the city breathing below them. Myra felt the enormity of it, this moment balanced on the edge of something that couldn't last, shouldn't start, but was happening anyway. "How long?" Myra asked. "Until the repairs are done." "Weeks. Maybe a month." Essa moved closer, until their bodies were nearly touching. Not long enough. Never long enough. Then we shouldn't waste time. Myra closed the final distance, bringing their faces together until she could count the subtle shades of violet in Essa's eyes, until their breath mingled in the cold air. Teach me something. About your world. About you. Essa's smile transformed her face, chasing away the melancholy. In Valorian culture, we read life patterns. May I try with you? At Myra's nod, Essa took both of Myra's hands, turning them palm up. Her fingers traced the lines there with reverent attention, following paths that meant nothing to human palm readers but seemed to speak volumes to her. You carry the weight of others, Essa murmured. Here, in the center, you make order from chaos. But these lines, spreading outward, you're lonely. You've been lonely for so long you've forgotten what connection feels like. Tears pricked Myra's eyes. Yes. Me too. Essa brought Myra's palms to her own face, letting Myra cup her cheeks. We're taught to be solitary. But standing here with you, I wonder if my teachers were wrong. If maybe loneliness isn't wisdom, it's just loneliness. Their foreheads touched, and Myra closed her eyes, feeling the warmth of alien skin against hers, the subtle vibration of that rapid heartbeat thrumming through the contact. Below them, the city continued its endless cycle. Above them, stars, Essa's home somewhere among them, burned cold and distant. But here, in this moment, there was only warmth and the courage of two lonely souls reaching across the void between worlds. Between worlds and heartbeats. The nights blurred together after that. Myra would finish her shift and descend to the gravity well, where Essa waited with that quiet smile that made Myra's heart stumble. They fell into a rhythm, conversations that stretched until dawn, walks through the cargo district's abandoned corridors, stolen moments where words gave way to comfortable silence. On the fifth night, Myra arrived with a problem. I might have done something stupid, she confessed, sliding a small case across the bar to Essa. You said you needed rare earth elements for the portal repairs. Iridium 192, specifically. That's not easy to source through official channels. Essa opened the case, her eyes widening at the 3 small vials of silvery material inside. Myra, this could cost you your job. Your freedom. It's surplus from a cancelled research project. Nobody's looking for it. Myra met Essa's gaze steadily. You're trapped here because you can't finish the work. I can help with that. So I am. Thane approached, his usual calm shaken. This accelerates our timeline significantly. We could complete the repairs within a week now. Something broke in Essa's expression, joy and devastation mixing together. Thank you. And I'm sorry. Don't be sorry yet. Myra forced lightness into her voice. You still have to teach me that meditation you mentioned. The Valorian one. Later, in the speakeasy's back room, a small space with salvaged furniture and walls that hummed with the building's mechanical systems, Essa guided Myra through the practice. They sat cross-legged on floor cushions, knees touching. We call it Severan, the stillness between heartbeats, Essa explained, her voice dropping to a whisper. You focus on the space between sounds, between thoughts. The moments where everything pauses. Show me. Essa's hands found Myra's in the dim light. Close your eyes. Feel my pulse. She guided Myra's fingers to her wrist, where that rapid hummingbird rhythm danced beneath the skin. Now find yours. Myra pressed her other hand to her own neck, feeling the slower, steadier thrum of human blood. Different rhythms, Essa murmured, leaning closer. But in the spaces between, there's synchronicity. Listen for it. Their breathing aligned first, then something deeper, as if their bodies were learning each other's language. Myra became aware of the warmth radiating from Essa, the subtle scent of ozone growing stronger. When she opened her eyes, Essa was watching her with an intensity that stole breath. I feel it, Myra whispered. The space between. Yes. Essa's hand moved from Myra's wrist to her face, fingers tracing the curve of her jaw with aching gentleness. In my culture, when two people find that synchronicity, it means something. We bond for life, one partner, one connection, absolute and unbreakable. That's why this is complicated. That's why this is impossible. But Essa was leaning in anyway, drawn by gravity stronger than physics. Because I'm leaving, and when Valorians bond, we carry that person in ourselves forever. Every moment apart becomes a small death. I can't ask that of you. Myra closed the remaining distance, her lips finding Essa's in the warm darkness. The kiss started gentle, an exploration, a question. Essa tasted like starlight and strange spices, and she kissed with the intensity of someone memorizing every sensation. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Myra kept her forehead pressed to Essa's. What if I'm willing to risk it? What if some connections are worth the cost? Myra. I've been half alive for years. Going through motions, filling time. Then you walked into my bar with your impossible eyes and your ancient laughter, and suddenly I remembered what it feels like to want something. Someone. Myra's hands framed Essa's face. Maybe we only get a week. Maybe it breaks us both. But I'd rather have this, have you, for 7 days than spend another 7 years safe and empty. Essa's response was another kiss, deeper this time, full of unleashed longing. They tumbled together onto the cushions, hands exploring with desperate tenderness. Essa's fingers traced patterns on Myra's skin that left trails of warmth, and Myra discovered that the violet tones extended across Essa's shoulders, her back, flowing like watercolor. You're so beautiful, Essa breathed against Myra's throat. Your people, you're all so beautifully brief. Like flowers that bloom for a single day. Then let's make this day count. They made love slowly, carefully, learning the landscapes of each other's bodies with reverent attention. Essa showed Myra where Valorians were sensitive, the pulse points at wrists and throat, the hollow at the base of the spine. Myra guided Essa's hands to her own secret places, showing her how humans responded to touch, to pressure, to the whisper of breath against skin. In the aftermath, they lay tangled together, hearts gradually slowing. Essa traced idle patterns on Myra's shoulder, and Myra felt tears sliding hot down her temples. I'm going to miss you so much, she whispered. And you're not even gone yet. Essa held her tighter. The worst part of loving across stars, you begin grieving before the goodbye. But Myra, listen to me. She tilted Myra's face toward hers. This isn't tragedy. This is the bravest thing either of us has ever done. We're choosing connection knowing it's temporary. We're saying yes to joy even though sadness is waiting on the other side. When do you leave? 5 days now. Thanks to your gift, 5 days. Myra closed her eyes, committing this moment to permanent memory. The weight of Essa against her, the hum of machinery through the walls, the smell of ozone and honey. 5 days to love someone from another world. 5 days to live more fully than she had in years. Then let's not waste another minute, Myra said, and kissed her again. When stars align too briefly. The days became precious, each hour weighted with the knowledge of its approaching end. Myra called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years, unable to bear the thought of wasting even a single shift away from Essa. They existed in a bubble, the gravity well, the abandoned cargo corridors, the small room that had become their sanctuary. On the third morning, Essa woke Myra before dawn. Come with me, she whispered. I want to show you something. They walked through the sleeping city, hand in hand, until they reached the old docks where ancient shipping containers rusted in neat rows. Essa led her to a particular spot where the morning fog rolled thick off the water, and from her pocket, she pulled a small vial of glowing powder. Bioluminescent pollen from my homeworld, Essa explained. We use it in bonding ceremonies. It responds to bioelectric fields, to life itself. She opened the vial and traced patterns on Myra's bare arm. The pollen clung to her skin, glowing soft violet in the pre-dawn darkness. Essa drew spirals and symbols, ancient words in a language older than human civilization. What does it say? Keltara Nessiv, the heart remembers what the mind cannot hold. Essa's voice caught. When this fades from your skin, the memory won't. I'm marking you, Myra. Claiming you in the only way my people know how. Myra watched the patterns pulse and flow, following the rhythm of her own heartbeat. Will it hurt? When you leave? Yes. Essa didn't lie, didn't soften it. For both of us. Valorian bonds are neural, chemical, cellular. I'll carry your absence like a phantom limb. But I wouldn't undo this. Not for anything. She traced more symbols on Myra's collarbone, her throat, the soft skin behind her ear. Each touch left trails of light, until Myra glowed like a constellation in the fog. Then Essa pressed close, her lips finding each glowing mark, kissing them as if sealing a promise. My turn, Myra said, taking the vial. Her hands were less steady, her symbols less graceful, but she painted Essa with the same reverence. She wrote "Remember me" in a dozen different ways across violet skin, watched the alien pollen react to alien biology, creating patterns that swirled and danced like living art. When the vial was empty, they stood wrapped in each other, glowing softly in the darkness, two beings from different worlds wearing each other's light. The sun rose, and the pollen faded, but Myra felt the change in her cells, as if Essa had rewired something fundamental, left an imprint that would never fully disappear. That night, Thane and RYX joined them at the gravity well for what they all knew was a farewell gathering. The bartender brought out something special, a bottle of Valorian crystal wine that had somehow found its way to Earth, rare and precious. To improbable meetings, Thane said, raising his glass. His usual solemnity had softened into something like fondness. And to Myra, who gave us the gift of completion. To breaking the rules, RYX added with a grin. Both the ones about fraternizing with humans and the ones about staying emotionally detached. Essa, you magnificent fool, you've done both spectacularly. Essa's hand found Myra's beneath the table, fingers interlacing. To finding home in unexpected places. They drank, and the wine tasted like starlight, effervescent and sweet, with an aftertaste that lingered like memory. The evening passed in stories and laughter, RYX recounting disasters from previous jobs, Thane sharing wisdom in his measured way, Essa watching Myra with eyes that held entire galaxies of feeling. Later, when the others had gracefully excused themselves, Myra and Essa retreated to their small room one final time. The intimacy was different now, slower, more deliberate, edged with desperation. They made love as if they could somehow imprint themselves onto each other permanently, as if enough passion could bridge the light years that would soon separate them. I have something for you, Essa said afterward, as they lay in the tangle of sheets and limbs. She reached for her discarded jacket and retrieved a small object, a crystal no bigger than a thumbnail, deep violet shot through with veins of silver. It's a keleth, a living crystal grown from my own cellular material. It's attuned to my biorhythm. Essa pressed it into Myra's palm, where it pulsed with gentle warmth. When I think of you, really think of you with intention and focus, it will warm in your hand. You'll know, across whatever distance separates us, that I'm remembering this. Remembering you. Myra's vision blurred with tears. Essa. I can't promise to come back. The universe is vast, and my people's contracts take us to the edges of known space. But I can promise this, you'll never be a forgotten moment. You're written into my cells now, part of my neural map. When I'm old and my work is done, I'll still remember how you tasted like honey and hope. I don't know how to do this, Myra confessed, her voice breaking. How to let you go. Neither do I. We'll figure it out together, one painful breath at a time. Essa kissed her forehead, her eyelids, the tip of her nose. Love doesn't always mean holding on. Sometimes it means opening your hands, letting someone return to where they belong, trusting that what you shared was real even if it couldn't last. They stayed awake through the night, talking and touching and memorizing, refusing to surrender a single moment to sleep. They spoke of impossible futures. Maybe Myra could find work on an off-world station, maybe Essa could request assignments closer to Earth, maybe the universe wasn't as insurmountable as it seemed. But they both knew these were beautiful lies, comfort against the approaching dawn. When the first light began to seep through the grimy windows, Essa dressed slowly, each movement deliberate. Myra watched, committing every detail to memory, the way Essa fastened her jacket, the particular grace in her movements, the final glance she gave their small sanctuary. The portal activates at sunrise, Essa said quietly. We have to go beneath the city now. Will you come? To see us off? Myra nodded, not trusting her voice. They walked through the awakening city, joined by Thane and RYX at the warehouse entrance. The bartender was there too, her weathered face soft with understanding. She pressed a small package into Myra's hands. "Honey cakes," she said simply. "For after. When you need something sweet to remember the sweetness." The descent into the city's underlayers took 20 minutes, down maintenance shafts and through forgotten tunnels until they reached a vast chamber that thrummed with ancient power. The portal stood at the center, a ring of stone covered in symbols that predated human history, now glowing with the repairs the Valorians had made. "It's beautiful," Myra whispered. "It's functional," Thane corrected with the ghost of a smile. "Which, to our people, means the same thing." The portal's hum grew louder, resonating in Myra's chest. HFY approached first, clasping Myra's shoulder with unexpected gentleness. "Take care of yourself, Manifest Keeper. You gave our Essa something precious, the courage to feel. That's no small gift." Thane followed, his silver-toned face grave. "In Valorian philosophy, we say Talsev Nekith, all meetings are temporary, but some temporary things are eternal. This is one of those." Then only Essa remained, and the portal was opening, reality bending into a corridor of light that led somewhere unimaginably far away. "I can't say goodbye," Myra said, the words catching in her throat. "Then don't." Essa took both of Myra's hands, the crystal pressed between their palms. "Say, until the stars align again. Say, carry me with you. Say anything but goodbye." "Until the stars align again," Myra whispered, and kissed her one final time, deep and desperate and achingly tender. When they broke apart, Essa's face was wet with tears that glowed faintly violet in the portal's light. She stepped backward, her hands slipping from Myra's, their fingers the last point of contact. "The heart remembers," Essa said. "What the mind cannot hold," Myra completed. Then Essa turned and walked into the light, followed by Thane and HFY, three figures dissolving into brilliance. The portal held for a moment longer, a window to impossible distances, before collapsing into silence. Myra stood in the empty chamber, the crystal warming in her palm, and let herself break. The space between goodbye and forever. 6 months passed like a long exhale. Myra returned to her job at the spaceport, to her manifest screens and cargo schedules. The world continued its rotation, indifferent to the hole in her chest where something vital had been torn away. She moved through her days efficiently, professionally, a perfect imitation of the person she'd been before the gravity well. But the nights were different. She kept the crystal on a chain around her neck, tucked beneath her clothes where it rested against her heart. Sometimes it would warm without warning, during a morning coffee break, in the middle of a cargo audit, once while she stood in the shower letting water run over her like tears. Each time, she would close her eyes and know that somewhere in the vast dark between stars, Essa was thinking of her. The gravity well remained her sanctuary. The bartender never asked questions, just poured Myra's drink and left her to her thoughts. Sometimes other patrons would try to start conversations, but Myra had perfected the art of polite distance. She wasn't rude, just unavailable, still occupied by someone who was light years away. One evening, as winter settled over Neo-Jakarta with unusual cold, Myra sat at her usual spot and realized she was smiling. Not the forced expression she wore at work, but something genuine. She was remembering HFY's terrible joke about temporal mechanics, the way Essa had laughed so hard she'd nearly fallen off her stool. "You look different tonight," the bartender observed. "Less haunted. More at peace." "I think I'm learning how to carry it," Myra said softly. "The missing her. It doesn't hurt less, exactly. But it hurts differently. Like an old wound that's finally scarred over. That's called healing, honey." "Is it?" Myra touched the crystal through her shirt. "Or is it just getting used to the pain? Maybe both. Maybe they're the same thing." Myra had started writing, filling notebooks with everything she wanted to tell Essa but couldn't. She wrote about the changing seasons, about improvements to the spaceport's manifest system, about the stray cat that had adopted the cargo district. She wrote about grief and growth, about learning to be whole while missing a piece of herself. She dated someone briefly, a kind engineer from the maintenance division who asked her to dinner and listened patiently when Myra explained she wasn't really available, not in the way that mattered. They parted as friends, and Myra didn't feel guilty. Essa had never asked for her to stop living. Love doesn't mean freezing yourself in amber, Essa had said during one of their last conversations. It means carrying someone with you while you keep growing. I want you to live, Myra. Fully and completely. So she tried. She took up painting, discovering a talent for abstract work that somehow always incorporated violet and silver. She reconnected with an old friend from university. She adopted the stray cat, naming it Comet. She learned to cook properly instead of surviving on instant meals. She began running along the waterfront at dawn, watching the sun rise over the same docks where Essa had painted her skin with glowing light. Small acts of living. Small rebellions against the gravity of grief. Then, on a Tuesday evening 6 months and 11 days after Essa left, something changed. Myra was walking home from the port, the crystal resting cool against her chest as usual, when it suddenly blazed hot, not the gentle warmth of Essa's thoughts, but an intensity that made her gasp. She stopped in the middle of the crowded street, pressing her hand to her chest. The heat pulsed in rhythm, fast and urgent, like Essa's alien heartbeat. 1, 2, 3 pause. 1, 2, 3 pause. Again and again, insistent as a knock on a door. Myra's own heart began racing. This wasn't memory. This was something else. Something immediate. She ran. Through the cargo district, past the gravity well, down into the maintenance tunnels she'd memorized. The crystal grew hotter with each step, guiding her like a compass toward magnetic north. Her lungs burned, her legs ached, but she didn't slow down. The portal chamber was exactly as she remembered, vast, ancient, humming with dormant power. But tonight, the symbols were glowing faintly, as if something on the other side was calling. Myra stood in the center of the chamber, the crystal now almost painful against her skin. She pulled it free, and in the dim light, it pulsed like a living heart, violet and silver veins blazing bright. "I'm here," she whispered to the empty air.
Essa, I'm here.
The portal remained dark, but the crystal's pulse quickened. 1, 2, 3 pause. 1, 2, 3 pause. A heartbeat. A beacon. A message traveling impossible distances. Myra didn't know how long she stood there, crystal clutched in both hands, hoping and hurting in equal measure. Minutes. Hours. Time felt negotiable in this place where physics bent. Then the portal shuddered to life. Light bloomed in the ancient ring, reality stretching thin. And through the brilliance, a figure approached, violet-skinned, silver-veined, eyes like galaxies, moving with a grace that Myra had committed to cellular memory. Essa stepped through the portal and collapsed to her knees. Myra was there in an instant, gathering her close, feeling that rapid hummingbird pulse, breathing in the scent of ozone and distant rain. "You're here. You're actually here." Contract completed early, Essa gasped, her face pressed against Myra's throat. Requested immediate reassignment. Traded favors, called in debts, broke at least 3 regulations. She pulled back enough to meet Myra's eyes. "I couldn't stay away. I tried, Myra. I tried to do the wise thing, the logical thing. But every moment away felt like dying slowly. So I came back." "For how long?" 6 months. Maybe more if I can negotiate an extension. Essa's hands framed Myra's face, thumbs brushing away tears. "I know it's not forever. But it's something. It's now. And I've learned that sometimes now is enough." Myra kissed her with 6 months of longing compressed into a single moment. The crystal blazed between them, hot as a star, and she felt Essa's tears mixing with her own. "I have notebooks full of things to tell you," Myra said, laughing and crying at once. 6 months of days you missed. Tell me all of it. Every boring detail, every small moment. I want to know everything." Essa stood, pulling Myra up with her. "But first, take me somewhere in this city. Somewhere that's yours. I want to see how you've lived without me." They walked hand in hand through Neo-Jakarta as dawn broke, and Myra showed Essa her new world, the apartment with Comet, the running path along the docks, the small art studio where she painted. She showed Essa who she'd become in the absence, and Essa traced the growth with wondering fingers, proud and aching and impossibly present. "You didn't freeze," Essa said, standing in Myra's living room, studying the violet and silver canvases. You bloomed. You asked me to live. So I did. Myra wrapped her arms around Essa from behind, resting her chin on her shoulder. But I'm so glad I don't have to do it alone anymore. Even if it's just for now. Just for now, Essa agreed. And then after that, another now. And another. We'll collect them like stars, all these precious moments. And when I have to leave again, you'll keep living and growing, and I'll carry that knowledge like light in the dark. They stood together as the city woke around them, two souls from different worlds learning the hardest truth of all, that love across impossible distances required both holding on and letting go, again and again, choosing connection over safety, presence over permanence. It wasn't the ending Myra had dreamed of in her darkest moments. But standing here with Essa's heartbeat steady against her palm, the crystal warm between them, she realized it was something better. It was real. Lessons from the stars. Love is not measured in forever, but in the courage to say yes to now, knowing that every beginning carries the shadow of ending, and choosing connection anyway. The deepest bonds are not those that last longest, but those that transform us, leaving imprints on ourselves that remind us we are capable of feeling more than we ever imagined possible. Sometimes the greatest act of love is releasing someone to their destiny while trusting they carry your heart with them, and learning to live fully in their absence, not as betrayal, but as honoring what you shared. True connection transcends distance and time. We meet, we part, we meet again in different forms, and in the space between, we grow into people worthy of the love we've known. The end.